Honourable members, I wish to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery of teachers and grade 10 and 12 students from Waigani Christian College in the National Capital District, and teachers and students from Surukum Sabe Literacy School in the National Capital District, and teachers and students from St. Anne's Primary School in Gerahu, National Capital District, and youths from the United Reformed Church, Gaira Village in Hiri Koyari District, Central Province. On behalf of the Parliament, I extend to the visitors a warm welcome to Parliament. Mr. Clerk, are there any petitions, notices, questions without notice? 45 minutes. The Honourable Member for Rabaul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister for Justice and the Attorney General of the country to answer. And perhaps the Deputy Prime Minister, Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, Minister for Lands, take note. Sorry, I withdraw that. I withdraw the request for the Deputy Prime Minister to take note. I was thinking of something else, but my question is still with the Minister for Justice. In East New Britain province, there's been a lot of law and order issues created by youths, young people. And a lot of them, we find them within the category of juveniles. And whenever they are taken to court, arrested and taken to court, they are found to be of the age within the category of juveniles. We send them to Keramet and the discovery is made that their age is within the category of being a juvenile. My question to the Minister is whether the definition of juveniles in our laws can be reduced. May be reduced so that these young people who continue to commit law and order issues, not only in East New Britain province, I believe this is a common issue throughout the country. If they could be dealt with by the court and given some lessons in prisons. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Member for Rabaul. Earlier in the week, I took one of you last week. You also raised another series of questions, which is I applied for putting the notice. Likewise, this is not a straightforward, seems to be straightforward, but the juvenile is a problem. Likewise, I will answer those two questions when I answer the other question you asked on the deep sea mining. So please, Mr. Speaker, place in the notice paper. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Notwagi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, firstly, before asking my questions, I want to take this time to acknowledge my students and teachers from Waigani Christian College who are now inside the Parliament chamber, and others too joining the chamber. I would like to welcome all of you. My question will be regarding education, your education. My question is directed to the Minister for Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology and Sport, Mr. Honourable Don Pollier. I'd like to say thank you to you for the nice, good report that you have given yesterday. Thank you for working very hard to improve the quality and the education of our country. And I also would like to say thank you to Minister for Education, Mr. Honorable Jimmy Oguro, for taking the lead to look after all our schools in the country. Okay, my question, I have 3 questions to ask. My first question, Mr. Speaker, nowadays, parents are finding very hard to find school fees to pay for the students who are attending universities and other tertiary institutions in the country. The school fees they are charging is more than 10,000 up to 20 or 30,000. And you just think of a village parent, he or she can't afford to pay all these fees for 5 or 6 years for the children who are attending universities. And also, now you see we are finding very hard for our students who are graduating to go out and find employment. It's very hard. So I want to ask you a question that can you draw up a structure plan to ask the government to subsidize 100% fee for all the tertiary institutions, including universities? That's my first question. And my second question is, I think it has come up on the media that some of the officers at the University of Papua New Guinea, they were selling marks for money, and it appeared, and I want you to explain to this House about your findings and your action. And my third question is selection of students, bright students. In our country, we need brains to come back and look after our country when we go down. Now, I want to ask you a question. Can you plan or put in your budget plan to ask the government to give you some money so that you can select the best students in universities and other tertiary institutions, so best students to go to other developed country universities to get the masters and PhDs, so that they will come back and become our leader of our country tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister of Higher Education.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it's wonderful to see you back after 3 or 4 months. It's good to see you. Speaker, welcome back to Parliament. I would like to acknowledge those 3 questions asked by the excellent member for North Wagi. I appreciate the fact that these questions emanate from a mindset who is also an educationist himself. I acknowledge the fact, Mr. Speaker, the students who are sitting up there, most of them, they have come from his school, and I like to commend the students, the other students from other schools too. And the question that the honourable member is asking, his first question is to if the government can abolish university school fees. Mr. Speaker, that is a issue of discussion at the higher education level. I started that very early when the good Prime Minister appointed me to the post. I established a Vice Chancellor's Committee, and I also restored and continued the Chancellor's Committee to work to address this very issue. And I instructed them to give me a 5-year budget plan for the universities first, and then I'll look at the TVETs after that, to address this very issue. Can the government pay 100% fees for all students who enter the universities? But that means the government will have to make some decision somewhere to save that money to make the decision. So it will be a very challenging decision for the government that if we will have to pay for the school fees of students attending universities throughout Papua New Guinea, both private and private sector universities. And then that means we'll have to sacrifice in other areas, and that would come hypothetically from the lower education system. And my colleague, brother minister, is there, and the debate is being now suggested on the floor of Parliament. Whilst I started that at the circles that I'm responsible for, Mr. Speaker. And that is not impossible, can happen if government as a whole agrees to pay 100% fees of university students, but we can support the parents to pay at the lower levels of education system, the students who go there, with a minimum subsidy. We can support them, but we'll encourage the parents to pay, because the fees there are lower than the fees at the higher education system. So that is not impossible, but it will require a discussion and some sacrifice that we must make in those areas to meet this 100% school fees abolition at the university level. So the honourable member's question is a very valid question. I do share the sentiments. And for instance, to give a bit of a statistics, PAU, Pacific Advantage University, is charging 24,000. At average, other institutions are charging 36,000 at average for a schooling of a student. Per student, the unit cost is 36,000, but in school fees or tuition fees goes from 12,000 to 50,000 per student. And under the TESAS program and the HECAS program, the government pays 6,000 per student for all those students entering the universities. And the balance will have to come from the students and the parents. So it is quite a challenge, it's a burden. So if, for instance, if Unitec is charging 19,000 for a course, then you subtract 6,000 that the government pays through the TESA scheme, and the balance will have to be met by the students. It depends on the course they do, and school fees vary from one university to the other, subject to the decision made by the University Council. So these are real challenges there, and I do consent to the view that is raised, but I will not say that we will do that, because that decision will have to be made through the government as a whole, but the sector that I represent has already started discussion, and the work that the chancellors and the vice chancellors have done are coming to me, and I'm observing that. So in the next few days, in fact, I indicated that by this week I would like to have all the budget documents in, and we'll make some observations. If we do abolish, then we'll have to fork out 600 million, approximately 600 million kina, to pay for all the higher universities school fees for those students who are going to universities only. 600 million approximately. So that's the money we must get from elsewhere to pay for if we were to do that, that's the kind of money we will have to pay for students attending universities. The second question was UPNG staff selling marks for money. Yes, it's a very sensitive issue, and as soon as I get the information we collated, evidence, and based on that, I directed through the Secretary, UPNG, Council, and the management to investigate into it. And I did get some report this thick already done prior on some of those issues, Mr. Speaker. And I must advise that the issues there are very, very comprehensively put in place, and thanks to Minister Pila Ninengi, who was the minister then, who had given that instruction to bring those studies. And I have observed that very, very serious issues are there. And I am adopting a policy approach called heal, not kill. The first thing that we think is terminate the vice chancellor, terminate the board, and put a new one, etc. I do find that is very relevant to do, but I go deeper in that. I understand what is the chronic thing that has caused that, and I find there's so many factors, Mr. Speaker, that you have to unentangle in some of those universities, and UPNG is one good case. So I find in UPNG Papua New Guinea, they know it, I've spoken to them, so it's not that I will offend them, They're independent, but I respect the independency, but I will not offend them, but they know it because I told them that they do not have systems in place. Like there should be a digital system that records the student data and marks, etc., to refer to, so the system delivers. But what is there is devoid of that kind of a system. Even financial accounting systems not there too. So it is a systematic failure that one or two now found that as a loophole to abuse, like we've seen in this particular case. So when I've instructed them, they have started to investigate. I told them don't suspend those two officers yet, so don't terminate those officers yet, just suspend them and investigate. Because I do not believe that we terminating a culprit is the solution. I believe that those culprits, if they what they've done amounts to criminality, I think it's not just terminating, it should be a solution. We should prosecute them in a competent court of law, but at the same time fixing the system that has aided that criminal activity or that abuse to take place. So I can inform the Honourable Member plus this Honourable House and the people of this country that the investigation is being done on a multi-front approach, the systems establishment, looking at the digital system that is there, looking at how they've been grading students in the past, and management, governance, financial sustainability, all those issues been addressed now, and once they come before me, I will take concrete steps and make decisions to arrest this once and for all, not just to come up with a bandit solution, but a permanent one that gives us the quality and such practice does not occur again. That is the answer to the second question, and I will make a report available to the committee that is looking after that sector in the parliamentary committee. I think the member himself is the chairman of the committee. I'll make those available to them once I've done the comprehensive investigation reporting, and we'll take actions on it, like I mentioned, Mr. Speaker. And finally, selection of bright students. Yes, selection of bright students. I'd like to, before I answer and think about something, a new system of award, we have TESAs there that also awards students. We have the Prime Minister himself, when he was Minister, he established the HELP, and he further reiterated it and established the HELP system that is there. And I have also instructed the universities to look at a sports and academic excellence scheme. A sports and academic excellence. So if we are to send students abroad, we like to see students do well in academic performance, but also do very well in sports as well. I think that the Prime Minister put me in the sports space as well as higher education. How do I amalgamate these functions together to give effect and have more impact on our students' mindset and training and skills development? So that is a matter that has been discussed, and like I said, when I get the report and the input from the universities, I will then discuss it with the Prime Minister and the Cabinet if we can establish another program on top of the TESAs and HELP called the Sports and Academic Excellence Award. It can do a lot of good, so you create sportsmanship for the young people to go abroad, but also they must meet academic standards. So they are sponsored abroad or in some institutions, but also they can play the sports at the same time. So that's a program that is in place in my sector, but as a government we will come up with some decisions. I hope I've answered the Honourable Leader's question, and I'd like us to some of those issues. We'll be patient. I'll be addressing issues step by step to finding lasting solutions. Emotional approaches, very quick, haphazard decisions doesn't find a solution, but it only solves one thing at a time. But I like to address everything, and I'm doing it, and I've given this commitment, Mr. Speaker, that by 3 years I will have positioned our education sector, institutions, universities, and the TVETs in a much better platform based on quality that it matters the rest of the world or the best in the world. Thank you.
We have a supplementary. What is your supplementary, Honourable Member for Ijibitari?
Poponeta.
Poponeta, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd also like to welcome you back to the Parliament.
Thank you.
We've missed you, so good luck looking you here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question, supplementary question, is in relation to the comments by the Minister saying that the universities are charging between 12,000 to around 30,000 per student. From my understanding is that what parents are paying when their children attend elementary school is that their school fees are between 100 and 200 kina, and then primary is between 200 and 300, and high school is between 5 and 1,000. Then all of a sudden you have an institution that jumps from 1,000 to around 12 to 30,000 kina, and sometimes this increase is a financial shock to a lot of parents. So my question is, can the Minister explain how come the university has this big disparity in school fees in terms of a high cost? And I know the outputs, we want to get the best output, but the output is not there. Why are universities charging so much higher school fees and institutions charging higher school fees, and then the outcomes are not there? So can the Minister explain how can we regulate? Because, for example, if there's 1,000 students attending a university and the fees are around 2,000 kina, that's about 2 million kina. And opposed to having charged 20,000, and that's 20 million kina. If there's a disparity in a cost, where is the outcome that we can be able to measure those costs? So can the Minister answer the question and then let the House know if he can institute an investigation to find out why universities are charging higher fees? Is this profit-driven or is this about learning-driven? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister for Higher Education.
That's a very relevant question, Mr. Speaker, and I acknowledge the question from the Honourable Member for Poponeta. It falls in line with the response I gave earlier. I established that team of chancellors and the vice chancellors to report to me as to why are they charging so much in all those institutions, university by university, and the report is coming to me. And that will be reflected in the budget. Therefore, I like to understand that. The very question I asked, the honourable members asked. I asked the same question. I said, why is it that I find there's a disparity in universities charging fees? And I wanted to know what is the cost. If there's the same cost offered by one university, and if there is still a difference in the fees charged, I want to understand the justification. The other two is, there also is, if the council is setting those universities, then I'd like them to justify to me as to what are those factors that culminate to that arriving at a university fee. So what the members ask is the actual question I asked them. I've given them written letters to respond to that, and they're giving it to me, and I will make that, because they give me their information, but I do not listen to the universities or the secretary alone to make my observations. I have my other systems to check. I listen to the parents. I hear other members like this, and I also have my own corporate memory mindset, because I have children going to those universities too. So using that, I will come up with this report, and I'll present part of the budget, but also to the universities. I'm also developing what I call a chancellor's manual, that I'm giving them the manual to guide them how much they should pay and all that, but I've not issued that yet, but I've informed them, and I will issue that. So, Mr. Speaker, we addressing the issue, and I thank the question. That's a very relevant and a smart question. It's already being answered to by the universities. I'll get the report. Thanks.
Honourable Governor Blong. Southern Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good Lola looking you. Me also like recognizing the students at the gallery. My series of questions is directed to the Minister for Education. As you would agree with me, several years ago, there were schools closing here and there because complaint come up that government was not providing the subsidy and support.
over 2002 and 2003, we haven't had any of this. I think there's stability in the schools now. And this is commendable. We commend the government for that. But Minister, through you, Mr. Speaker, can you tell the people of Papua New Guinea how much government releasing long support long all our schools inside the country? We need to know this. That's my last speaker, but I'm putting it as the first speaker, Mr. Speaker, for the Minister to respond. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the number of second question, in relation to the number of grade 12 students passing through school system every year, in his last statement, he stated to Parliament that there were 25,000 to 30,000 grade 12s coming out of the school system. Yesterday's newspaper recorded that this number was increased to 32,000 grade 12s coming out of the school system every year. Also, in that previous statement he had, our tertiary institutions and universities, teachers' colleges, technical colleges, etc., can only take up to 9,000 to 12,000. So, Mr. Speaker, my second question, can the good minister confirm the total number of grade 12 population for this year and how many our tertiary institutions in the country can accommodate in terms of the spaces that are available? Mr. Speaker, my third question, what happens to the 13,000 or 18,000 grade 12 leavers or students that are youthful, energetic, dynamic population of our country that are not taken up by the tertiary institutions, and the number increases? So, Mr. Speaker, where do they go and what do they do as citizens of the country? These numbers are increasing every year as the number of students increases. It's a very important challenge to the country and also into the future. Last question, Mr. Speaker. To accommodate this increasing school leavers in the last government, the Education Department had a TVET rollout or technical college rollouts to electorates and LLGs. Mr. Speaker, can the good Minister for Education inform us what has happened to this idea? Can the Minister assure Parliament what plans are there from the Department of Education to address this ever-increasing concern that will be a challenge for our country into the future, now and into the future? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the good Governor for Southern Highlands for a very good question. In respect to education, school fees, and the programs that our government is rolling out since this government took office in 2019. Mr. Speaker, we confirm that the total number of grade 12s we have in 2003 is 32,500. And in 22, we have about 30,600. They're in 208 secondary schools. Out of this who set for exam, about 10 to 12,000 succeed through tertiary education, that is universities and respective colleges. And as you, all of us are aware that there is not enough spaces in tertiary institutions. We need more spaces in tertiary education so that our grade 12s can be accommodated there. Now, what is our government is doing? We have created a forward program, and some of those who are not accepted in the universities and colleges, our government has established all the secondary schools throughout the country and high schools. We have established forward programs So some of them are now enrolled in FORWARD programs. As you can recall in my statement, we have increased number of enrollments in FORWARD programs in 2021, 22, and currently in 2023 we are expecting, we haven't got a report yet, we are expecting over 100,000 school enrollments. So in 2020 we have 35,000, and 2021 we got 53,000, and 2022 we got 82,000 students who are from grade 12s. We have accommodated them in the FORWARD programs in various districts and provinces and secondary schools and high schools. And those teachers are paid by the Teaching Service Commission to ensure that the same program, the normal classroom students learning, are taught in FORWARD programs throughout the country. Our FORWARD students will also sit the same exam as normal students in the classrooms. Our government is now looking at online selections as well from the FORWARD program, so no child will be left behind in this arrangement. We also have about 36,000 spaces in vocational schools throughout the country, and our government is establishing vocational centers to accommodate those who cannot make it through a normal system. We got 36 spaces in all vocational schools throughout the country. Our government is now embarking on establishing all vocational schools throughout the country in all districts in the provinces. So if those districts yet to establish the vocational centers, you have to see our department, see me, so we can make arrangement to ensure that you have the vocational schools established in your districts. For TVET programs, I think has been transferred to higher education. The department is only concentrating on establishing vocational schools in the districts and provinces. The amount of money that we pay in project fees for this year and government tuition fees, this year we're paying 620 million and 160 million for project fees. We have outstanding of 151 million, that includes the project fees yet to be paid for Term 4, and our hardworking treasurer and his department are helping us to roll that out as our government's priority in education. To conclude, I would like to announce to us this morning that our government is progressing well in schools of excellence in our STEM program. So tomorrow at almost at lunchtime, our 52 students who are selected for STEM education program, our Prime Minister will launch first batch. 52 will be going to USA for studies. That will take place in Hilton Hotel. If you are free, you can come around. So with this regard and the brief, I thank the Governor for Southern Highlands for a very good question, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You may got 2+ supplementary come up outside, so me ask him, Honorable Member Blong Koilala. Hi? Sorry, Ijibitari.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker Luksalo, people of Ijibitari. My supplementary goes to the Minister for Education, is that the bottleneck in the system we are not addressing. The issue is that when you deal with FORWARD, you are actually increasing the number of students who will then need spaces in the tertiary institutions. And there is not answering our problem in this country of spaces. And that is the reason why my supplementary is that, is your ministry collaborating with the Ministry for Higher Education, so that you work in collaboration to ensure that the students transition the spaces created at the tertiary institution to accommodate them. Because you mean how much 86,000 or how much, but we are still creating the bottleneck. So that is my question. Are you two departments collaborating to ensure that there is the smooth transition in the education system? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I have gone through that query already. The two departments are working, two ministers are working. That's why I'm saying from those who cannot continue, they go through vote, and we are now, for the first time, this government has created, we are allowing the foreign students to be recognized as normal students. They're learning the same contents as the classroom students, paid by the same teachers, taught by the same teachers. We're paying those teachers so that they sit the same exam and they're on the same selection panel. The same selection panel in the higher education tech sector and universities, they do the selection to select them. That's why we are now introducing, I have written to the higher education minister to allow online selection. Once these students pass through the required courses, they now have to apply through online selection like classroom students. So we are working together, and you can't see this in the past. This is a progress itself. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Governor for Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Laluk Savilol people of the Central Province. Mitok hamamas lo lukim you again you come nasina lo chebli you. Before me asking question lo me like look Savin na talk thank you lo Prime Minister, na Deputy Prime Minister lo makim Honorable Kesi Sawan lo come up Minister lo Cabinet Blanol. I also acknowledge the students who are here in the Parliament to observe the sessions. Mr. Speaker, my question without notice is directed to the Honourable Minister for Petroleum and Energy. Mr. Speaker, firstly, I would like to thank Total Energy and the JV partners in the Papua LNG project for having confidence in PNG as an attractive destination to invest the $10 billion in the second LNG project. This obviously is good news for a struggling PNG economy. Mr. Speaker, the Papua LNG project partners have recently lodged the application for petroleum development license to the Department of Petroleum and Energy ahead of the final investment decision, which I believe is scheduled for the end of this year, 2023. Mr. Speaker, my question is in two parts. The first is with regards to gas reserves. In the Papua LNG gas project agreement signed between the state and the project partners, the foundation gas volume to be produced from the Elk Antelope fields is projected at 10.3 trillion cubic feet, TSCF. Initially, following the discovery and tests by the former operator, the Inter-Oil SPI, the gas reserves volume was estimated to be 11.3 TCF. More recently, Total Energies, as the new operator for the Petroleum Retention License 15, PRL 15, was carrying 6.7 TCF after drilling 2 more wells. Mr. Speaker, it is very important to all stakeholders in Papua LNG project, including the independent state of PNG and its entities, that a firm gas reserves volume is determined and confirmed for future revenue planning and budgetary purposes. Therefore, can the minister, can the Honourable Minister pursue this matter with the project developers to resolve the gas reserves volumes if it has not been determined? The second part of my question refers to liquids production and sales. Mr. Speaker, the Elk Antelope gas field is a wet gas field, meaning that when the gas is brought to the surface from the reservoir, the liquids drop out from the gas. These liquids include condensate, which is light oil, and liquefied petroleum gas, LPG. The Papua LNG project will build a separate 10-inch pipeline to transport the liquids from the field to the LNG plant at Caution Bay for storage and marketing. My second question, Mr. Speaker, is who will own and benefit from the revenues from the sales of the liquids? This issue, I believe, was not addressed in the project gas agreement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister of Petroleum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That was a very important question on a very important project for this country. And, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Governor for Central Province has graciously given me advance warning about that question, and I have a written answer that will try to answer the question more accurately for all of our benefit. So, on the first question, Mr. Speaker, in relation to the one regarding gas reserves, the 10.3 TCF of gas in the foundation volume for the purposes of the Resource Contracts Fiscal Stabilization Act 2000. Our laws require the state to produce fiscal guarantee to big projects, resource projects, with a fixed time frame or a fixed amount or volume of resource to be extracted under the specific fiscal guarantee for that specific project, in this case the Papua LNG project. Mr. Speaker, the 10.3 TCF is the highest estimate that the JV partners can provide for what the Elk Antelope fields may hold, and this volume is contracted under the Papua LNG gas agreement to be produced and sold from the project fields. Mr. Speaker, Interoil in the past have conducted drilling and well tests, and there have been varying degrees of results from what has been stated by the Governor for Central, which is 11.3 TCF. The structure and composition of Elk Antelope fields pose major challenges to drilling programs in the past, and results have wide margins of differences. However, since TotalEnergies took operatorship of PRL 15 license, work towards ascertaining reserves estimate has now become clearer. Mr. Speaker, my department has had very detailed technical consultations and workshops with TotalEnergies and the JV partner since October 2022 on the subsurface technical matters. And 6.7 TCF 2P reserves is very reasonable at this stage on the volume of the gas. As I have mentioned above, an application, as I've mentioned in my earlier conversation in this Parliament, an APDL has been lodged, application for a petroleum development license, has been lodged, and detailed technical reviews are being undertaken by my department at this very moment, Mr. Speaker, which will lead to further reserve certification. So the work is ongoing. As I have been advised, the department is presently satisfied with 6.7 TCF 2P reserves at this stage. But for the purposes of fiscal stability, the contract has been signed off at 10.3 TCF. So that within that range, Mr. Speaker, there will be no destabilization of the fiscal terms of the gas agreement. However, if during further drillings, etc., there is more reserves found which goes well above 10.3 TCF, then of course the fiscal terms will be subject to further review. On the second question, Mr. Speaker, in relation to question on liquids production and sales, the Elk Antelope fields have a combined resource estimate of in the range of 6.7 TCF of gas reserves and 98 to 120 million barrels of condensate. So both of these have been estimated separately, and those are the volumes. The liquids are part of the gas reserves in the ground, and when produced, they can be separated. The title and ownership of petroleum produced, which include both the gas and the condensate, from the PDL passes to the joint venture partners in proportion to their participating interest at the wellhead. Mr. Speaker, the application for petroleum development license, there are two applications for two separate pipelines. One pipeline for gas and the other for condensate to transport both separately from the processing facility to the PNG LNG plant site to be further conditioned for sale. Mr. Speaker, the project JV partners, including state through Kumul Petroleum, KPHL, and the landowners through MRDC, are owners of the gas and the liquids in proportion to their participating interests and will benefit from the sales proceeds. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Governor Long, Western Province.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, recognizing people of Western Province. Me too like talk welcome all beginning of me come sit down. Look lo me bla. Los la parliament sitting. Thank you through a question lo me ba me directing ko law. Good law minister law. Petroleum again. Na me like to background me like talk thank you law. This la government me. Work hard through law negotiation law. Plenty of big resource development in the next few years, especially law. Wafi golpu na two law opinion gas, one kind law. All resource fields. Through law slagaman mda look sawasam. Tila tok law. Kisim back more law country. Na for a short time pain, me looking some law work. Na opinion, though I may not start, state I'm kissing 63% for a national take. Na misa some project government by me, one time Olenos by me, by benefit of 63%. One that's la question by me, after you been signing opinion gas agreement, online by me place, especially Lenonas, only Hamamas. Now I'm creating some expectation, some early works, now some work must come up the place. Or some all asking me, nothing or minister you to on private meetings play one time all. So me like ask you the floor so you can clear him. Tintin the people the western or papa ground the place to one time. So question to me one in time and by development forum law. Opinion gas pa come up. Number 2, time you been signing the gas agreement. Only to was a middle provincial government, now all host district, but like an excess him. Some of the tax credits in funds of a tune up to 150 million. Now time like excess in this law, we need to have the opinion gas Physical Stability Act to be passed before we can have access to that fund. Me like asking whether this la act and me passing finish so. So was me passing finish one time by this la I guess as Physical Stability Act then come into play na middle of start law accessing this la tax credit projects lo stati meliwex lo host district na host eligible lo one ma opinion stablen. Thank you to one time isla mi Lucimosen. Thank you.
Honorable Minister of Petroleum.
Thank you, Lord. Number 2 question. Kamlo Governor of Western Province. Two important question because Mr. Speaker, Mr. Exim plan the text message direct Kamlo phone blow me. Lo one all people blow place. Now like say lo answers lo this like question. So good plan ask him now lo public so me answer na plan the man can look him. Na harim. Also na make him easy lo me instead of me answering plan the text message. We can answer him one goal here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question 1, Development Forum. Project sequence, and by come up also. We got 2 projects within the same region. One plan El Cantaloupe, Gulf, and then over to the west and Pinyang Istap. 2 stop, same geographic region. So how government sequencing these projects? Kirapim na pinisim work development, construction Papua, LNG project past them, and then go across Pinyang na starting Pinyang. So construction this la tupla project by come up back to back. So suppose construction Papua start 2024 thereabouts. Okay, by taking about 4 years pinisim this construction. So you may look around 2027, 2028, whereby Mipla move go along construction, actual construction, blow Pinyang. One reason why Mipla sequence him rather than walk him to run him to parallel to each other simultaneously, and because country blue legally, public service blue legally, na one project emsa generating plenty work to mass na emsa we absorbing all the public servants lo managing this project. Now even all contractors lo private sector, all contractors by working work too at that very high level, high cost, big projects. Emino plenty lo this country. So time me working one big project me plus run sort lo public service support na private sector support. So I think in short all phrase him also absorptive capacity and good plan of this country. So in response to that, me plus sequence him so that all he can come up back to back. Now all get our resources you me manage him one pla, finish him, then you me kirap him narpla can. Narpla additional benefit him also time me work him also you me double him time low where benefits flow by Kamlo country. Instead of concentrating lo one period and finish na then economy and collapse. So by doing that, economic benefits by spread out not into a 4-year period but over an 8-year period. So you may expand it, you may spread him out. Economic flow go inside lo community blow you may. So time before construction come up lo 2028 lo Pinyang before that around about 2027 number out. Coincide one then time blow election blow you me 2 year but also this is a time by development forum and by he come up closer to the period time before law project Pinyang project move into construction phase. So maybe around 2026 2027 is when we're looking at a development forum where the state, now all the stakeholders plus state, including provincial governments, now districts, LLGs, landowners, by me sit down on one table, now by me discuss how we can share benefits. It can blow side blow state. So it's within that time frame, 2026, 2027, 2028. Namelo this is time development forum. So, sorry, 2026, 2027. Ikamlo narpla question number 2 question lo.
Honorable Minister, hereby interrupting you because for 5 minutes long asking me to talk sabe me abru si mak belong finish. Na you may go inside more of this so mami asking you long put him you back him back all this blah remind you asking blow you lo prepare na ikolong member na all our na look sabe lo this blah. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Acting Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask leave of this Parliament to move a motion without notice.
Is leave granted? Leave granted, Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I move that so much of these standing orders be suspended as would prevent the notice number 50, 38, 54, 55, 56, and the other of the day, number 18, 19, 20, and 26, government business being called on forthwith.
Question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Notice number 38, notice number 50, Minister for Petroleum and Energy.
Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I present the National Energy Authority Amendment Bill 2023.
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Reading, a bill for an act amended National Energy Authority Act 2021 and for related purposes.
Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Speaker and honourable members of Parliament, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the proposed National Energy Amendment Bill 2023 to amend the provisions of the National Energy Authority Act 2021. The amendments proposed under this bill are intended to ensure the Principal Act is consistent with Section 209, subsection 1 of the Constitution. In the light of the Supreme Court's interpretation of Section 209 in the recent case of PNG Forest Industries versus Tommy Reza, which is referred to as the Tommy Reza case in 2017. Mr. Speaker, the honourable and honourable members of Parliament, in the 2017 Tommy Reza case, all fees and charges and levies imposed by the Minister for Forestry under the forestry regulations were challenged by the PNG Forest Industries Association as being inconsistent with Section 209, subsection 1 of the Constitution. In that case, the Supreme Court, in essence, held that pursuant to Section 209, subsection 1 of the Constitution, the authority to impose fees, charges, levies, etc., for the purposes of raising finances for the state and its agencies rests with the National Parliament alone. This authority includes the enacting of legislation that provide for the imposition of fees, charges, levies, etc., as well as the determination of rates of the same. Mr. Speaker and honourable members of this House, prior to the Supreme Court's judgment in the Tommy Reza case in 2017, Section 209, subsection 1 of the Constitution was interpreted rather loosely to mean that Acts of Parliament could make general provisions for the imposition of taxes, leaving specific details such as rates, methods of payment or collection, etc., to be prescribed by regulations. And that was the common practice up until 2017, when the Supreme Court determined the practice to be inconsistent with Section 209, subsection 1 of the Constitution, and therefore invalidated provisions of the Forestry Act 1991 and the Forestry Regulations 1998 that purported to empower the Minister for Forestry with the authority to set the rates for timber export levies. Mr. Speaker and members of this Parliament, while the Tomiresa case was instituted to challenge the provisions of the Forestry Act 1991 and the Forestry Regulations 1998, the Supreme Court judgment in that case has a general and overarching application to all acts of Parliament and subsidiary regulations. Hence, its application to the National Energy Authority Act 2021, the Electricity Industry Act Chapter 78, and the Electricity Industry Regulations. Currently, the electricity industry, certain fees and charges are being imposed and have been imposed since 2006 under the Electricity Industry Regulations. However, in the light of the Tomiresa case, it is proposed that those fees and charges be amended in the National Energy Authority Act 2021 so that to be consistent with Section 209, subsection 1 of the Constitution. Apart from the proposed amendments to insert the fees and charges into the Principal Act, the NEA Act, other minor amendments are also proposed that will effectively remove from the Principal Act any mention of fees and charges being imposed under the regulations. The regulations themselves will also need amending consequent and subsequent to the proposed amendments to the Principal Act after being passed by Parliament. In summary, if this bill is passed, it will effectively transfer into the Principal Act the fees and charges that are currently imposed under the regulations. Therefore, there is nothing new, Mr. Speaker. It's all being charged and collected under existing regulations, but in this audit and stocktake, those rights will be transferred into the Principal Act. And therefore, bring the Principal Act into consistency with Section 209(1) of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker and honourable members, pursuant to Section 109 of the Constitution, the National Parliament has the general powers to enact laws. And for purposes of this bill, the Parliament and only the Parliament has the power under Section 209(1) of the Constitution to authorize, I quote, the raising of finance by the national government, including the imposition of taxation, end quote. Mr. Speaker and honourable members, I therefore seek your support to ensure that the National Energy Authority Amendment Bill 2023 is passed in compliance with the requirements of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker and honourable members, these amendments are needed to ensure the effective regulation of the electricity supply industry, and I require your support in voting for this. With that, I humbly commend the National Energy Authority Amendment Bill 2023 to this Honourable House and in accordance with the standing orders, open the debate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question is that the question be put. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The question is that the bill be now read a second time. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Second reading, a bill for an act to amend the National Energy Authority Act 2021 and for related purposes.
Honourable members, I have to announce that I have received a message from His Excellency the Governor-General dated 3rd August 2023 recommending the imposition of taxation insofar as the bill relates to and provides for such imposition. Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of Parliament to move the third reading forthwith.
Is leave granted? Leave granted. Mr. Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a third time.
The Honourable Member for Abao.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a very short commentary, and I want to commend the Minister for Petroleum and Energy for bringing about this amendment to the NEA legislation. It's a new law and a new entity, and I'm really happy that the Minister is moving forward in a big way. And I want to specifically mention on one issue that I had mentioned once on the floor of Parliament, and that is the need for covering the entire country with electricity. Electricity has been proven globally that it impacts positively to the improvement of livelihoods of citizens that access power on a 24-hour basis. Given the geography of our nation, the main grid will take a long time and very expensive to cover the entire country. And therefore, this amendment, Mr. Speaker, will allow the regulations on the off-grid electricity supply in this country, which to me, if allowed, will transform the supply of electricity in every corner of our beloved country. So I stand to support this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Deputy Opposition Leader.
Me too, me sanaplo supporting Minister. Surprisingly, me feature lick inside lo this bill you put him come simply because we tested the waters at the time. The Supreme Court talk, Minister, you must go back to Parliament. Lo make certain that you seem all right, talk all right, lo Parliament, in order for it to become law, so that it can be enacted or enforced through the Minister's office and through the Prime Minister's office as well. Mr. Speaker, Mia Maslow, you may now get chance to look improve him or amend him, sample act blamey, and in so doing, at a time when we when we were taken to the Supreme Court for interpretation and correction, it brought forward to not only to this Parliament but to governments that there are loopholes in our laws. And because of those loopholes that are in our laws, successive governments and even this government today would have missed out in revenue generation. Plenty of money where you can walk in, you may not walk in because you got loophole inside law. So in supporting this call today, this law now by me come up in, I would like to put it this way, Mr. Speaker, that plenty laws blaming since independence or before independence require reviewing. Now you may come law, you may must amend him so that it closes that loophole. Inoblo energy taso, but all sectors inside law, government blaming, need experts in law to dive into the existing laws that we have, relook at them and see where you got loophole, where you got gap where all industries or all people who come and invest inside the country blame or use him so that they exploit our resources or use him to their advantage can be now closed so that government can use him power blame, lo impose him on him, like him, lo work him, lo development, lo this country. So, Mr. Speaker, it is, I think, imperative and important that all man lo sabe law inside law government. As the tasoli mi talk lo wampla bill blame Minister for Justice Karim Kam lo Parliament, and it is very important that all lawyers blame or sabe man blame must
Isipa with the midday news. In a major operation, the Royal Papua New Guinea Constabulary has intercepted a significant catch of illegal weapons, effectively disrupting a suspected major illegal weapons trafficking network. Led by Commissioner of Police David Manning, the operation involved RPNGC and PNG Defense Force collaboration, resulting in multiple arrests related to weapons trafficking. The successful operation was made possible by amendments to the Firearms Act of 2022, empowering law enforcement against illicit arms trade. Intelligence gathered in Hela and Southern Highlands provinces played a crucial role, leading to tactical actions from July 28 to 30, 2023. The detainees were linked to domestic terrorism and kidnappings. The subsequent raid in Mount Again revealed hidden arms, ammunition, and explosives. These interventions not only halt criminal activities but also underscores national security efforts. This year, the law and justice sector saw a significant increase in funding in the country's history of over 28%, with an allotment of $401 million. Cementing the government's commitment to ensuring safety, peace and justice throughout the country, members of parliament were then given the opportunity to voice opinions on the challenges taking place in the law and order sector. They include Mississippi Governor Harlan Bad.
When I look at the Constitution, and I'm not a lawyer, Mr. Assistant Speaker, I have a problem where manemi wokim heavy. Constitution sa hurry up lo banisim desla man lo wokim heavy. The person who is accused of wrongdoing or is suspected of wrongdoing, the entire Constitution em saigona sanap backside lo protect him right law, trouble man. But when I look at the Constitution, my reading of it is that there is nothing to protect the victims. So you victim, you can wait if the justice system is slow, if the prosecution is slow, if all of these mechanisms of the state are slow, you can wait 5 years to kiss him justice.
There are 4 sugarcane diseases that the Ramu Research Services based at Gusap in Medang Province monitors on an annual basis. Plant pathologists Leka Tom said they are always monitoring the sugarcane fields of Ramu Agri-Industries for the ratoon stunting disease, the Ramu stunned sugarcane smut or Donri Medru. The plant pathologist pointed out that since sugarcane is a native Papua New Guinean plant, some of the pests and diseases can only be found in PNG. Tom outlined that they monitor 4 diseases annually, and out of the 4, they have prioritized management for one, which is called the ratoon stunting disease. It is caused by a bacterium that lives in the vascular system of the cane plant and restricts the ability to transport water.
For Ramu stunt, it's a virus, and then we have sugarcane smut and downy mildews, which are fungus. So with those 3, we basically just monitor, because we are it's an ongoing work in progress with control and management of those diseases.
A commitment to conserving the environment between communities is one of the most important deeds to provide habitat for native plants and animals and enhance ecosystem services. A conservation deed was signed by 2 clans from Sum Gilbar local level government area in the Sumkar district of Medang province to protect their land and natural resources. Differences were put aside on the 2nd of August 2023 when Amang and Amungawin clans from Sumbukanam village agreed to work together to protect their land and natural resources. 2,260 hectares of customary land covers the conservation deed. It is now part of an active and ongoing environmental protection management area. In regional news, there are renewed warnings. The insurance industry isn't fit to respond to the worsening effects of climate change. A new report led by consumer group Choice has found premiums are going up and people are struggling to navigate the claims process or get adequate compensation.
Sarah and Beck have spent hundreds of hours in this makeshift home going over documents from their insurer.
Actually making them do their job properly. And it's so frustrating.
The couple's four-bedroom home was inundated in the Victorian floods 10 months ago.
This is one of the bathrooms.
They're fighting their insurance company for enough cash to build a new home that won't flood again.
The whole experience has been dreadful and exhausting and stressful.
Climate change is driving more extreme weather events. A new report has found that most people are facing higher premiums, even if they disaster-proof their homes. And policyholders are battling many other problems.
Far too many people are finding that they can't get insurance, they can't afford it, or when they need to make a claim, they find that they're not covered.
The consumer rights group wants insurers to simplify policies and claims and lower premiums for those who reduce risks around the home. For its part, the Insurance Council wants Canberra to invest more in extreme weather resilience and says that will help keep premiums affordable in the long term.
We all have an interest in ensuring that when a disaster hits and we've got to put a rebuild effort into place, that we build back better.
The insurance industry's response to last year's flooding event is already being reviewed by the federal government. Choice also wants a review into the affordability of premiums now and into the future. Sarah and Beck think they are close to settling with their insurer, hopeful they can start building their new home.
Authorities are expecting a fierce bushfire season for the East Coast with higher than average temperatures and plenty of fuel from recent rains. In New South Wales, fire authorities and other agencies are stepping up their preparation for what they fear would be a long, hazardous season.
A two-day testing exercise has begun here at the Rural Fire Service headquarters in Western Sydney. As part of Exercise Alinta, RFS and other agencies are running simulations of real-life bushfire scenarios. They're testing everything from communication and warning systems to how firefighters and aircraft are deployed, and it comes ahead of what scientists and bushfire experts are saying will be a hazardous bushfire season. The back-to-back La Niña events have created prolific regrowth of vegetation, and now that a dry weather system is setting in, it's feared this could pose a threat of fast-moving grass fires. The area of most concern is northern New South Wales, stretching from the New England region to the northern rivers, which experienced catastrophic floods only last year. But there are areas of bushland around Sydney that haven't burned for years and have become very thick. Even areas affected by the catastrophic Black Summer bushfires of 2019-20 have been identified as being at risk. Much of this bushland is already seeing plenty of undergrowth that's beginning to dry out. And it's because it's been so wet until recently. There's been limited time for hazard reduction burns, so it's a big game of catch-up.
We're seeing certainly a different risk than we've seen for the last few years. And this is obviously the biggest risk that we have seen since the 2019-25 season, and we want to make sure that this state is ready to deal with whatever comes our way.
While hazard reduction burns remain the priority, fire crews are using other methods as well to get prepared for the season. They've got extra technology such as satellite and even AI to help detect where fires are starting and where they might spread. There are also extra equipment such as water bombing helicopters which are being deployed. Though it will be in large part up to the public as well to ensure they're in the bushfire preparedness mindset, which is a major shift given there have been years of rain and floods.
A fireball which tracked across Melbourne's skyline last night was most likely the wreckage of the Russian rocket on its way back to Earth, according to Australia's space agency. The rocket was used to launch a new navigation satellite and was meant to plug into the Southern Ocean afterwards, but experts say there are signs things don't go to plan.
A Russian rocket re-enters the Earth's atmosphere.
Holy crap. That is tearing apart.
Leaving a flaming trail across the city's skyline.
It's coming in at incredible speeds, probably around, 7 kilometres per second, slamming into this thick atmosphere, and it's causing it to slow down really incredibly quickly.
The fireball was seen as far south as Tasmania late last night.
It's a meteorite.
But it was hours before Australia's space agency was able to confirm what the spectacular sight was. The likely wreckage of a Russian Soyuz rocket used to sling a new navigation satellite into orbit and which smashed into pieces before bursting into flames. After launching from Western Russia, the Kremlin rocket was meant to plunge into the Southern Ocean off the southeast coast of Tasmania.
Clearly this thing was coming in a little early, or relatively speaking low, to Melbourne to give such a beautiful light show. I suspect that wasn't part of the plan.
The Australian Space Agency is now monitoring the situation, but experts say it's something we're more likely to see in the next decade as sovereign nations and private companies try to find a foothold on the final frontier.
Whenever we put something up, we should certainly be responsible for making sure we know where it comes down and that it doesn't sort of harm people.
A warning from the heavens.
There's a starman waiting in the sky.
In sports, the New Ireland Autonomy Sevens competition concluded with electrifying battles at Lugannan Oval from August 4th to 5th. 16 teams competed under the Team Promoting Autonomy agenda through sports, backed by 50,000 kina from the New Ireland provincial government. Lakes Bay dominated the finals, trumpeting 10-7 against KVN Malins. Laupal Cowboys won the plate, defending N4C City Pirates 15-10, while Fisio Tulang clinching a 12-10 win over Lubira Pulex in the bagging ball category. Medina Malin scored the shade with a 15-12 victory over Bung Storms. New Highland Rugby Union Chairman Marlene McClellan said the competition's legacy will inspire the province's youth, uniting communities through sports. The Matildas will face France in the FIFA Women's World Cup quarterfinals after Les Blues demolished Morocco 4-0 in the round of 16. Fifth-ranked France looked more clinical from the jump in Adelaide, and the game was basically put to bed by 3 goals in a 10-minute period in the first half, with Kadu Atou Dani scoring the opener and creating 2 more before the half-hour mark. It is France's 4th straight up to the quarters, with their best effort as semi-finals belt in 2011, although the Matildas will take confidence from a 1-0 win in their final warm-up match a week before the tournament started. The rematch will take place at Brisbane's Lake Park on Saturday at 5 p.m. Thanks for your company. Tune in at 6 tonight for more.
Close the doors. The question is that the bill be now read a third time. Would those in favor please stand? Those against, please stand. The result of the vote, the ayes 85, the noes 0. Mr. Clerk.
Third reading, the bill for an act to amend the Public-Private Partnership Act 2014.
Mr. Clerk.
Notice number 54, Prime Minister.
Mr. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Health, who is down with sick, I present the Provincial Health Authorities Amendment Bill 2023.
Mr. Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the Provincial Health Authorities Act 2007 to provide for accountability and compliance by the Provincial Health Authorities and for related purposes.
Mr. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I ask the Labour Parliament to move the second reading forthwith, please.
Is leave granted? Leave granted. Mr. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill now be read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Speaker, it is really my pleasure to move this Provincial Health Authorities Amendment Bill 2023 to be read a second time. Some background, Mr. Speaker, this new Provincial Health Authorities Amendment Bill 2023 amends the Provincial Health Authorities Act of 2007. Mr. Speaker, the Provincial Health Authorities Act 2007, or PHA Act, in short, is a law that establishes the 21 provincial health authorities and the PHA boards in the provinces and sets out the governance structure and functions of the provincial health authorities by which the PHA board represents the minister in the respective province and reports to the health minister and the provincial governor annually on the use of funds and the operations of the PHAs. The CEO of the PHA is accountable only to the board. Mr. Speaker, when the provincial health authorities came into operation in 2007, the once decentralized health system, created under the organic law on the provincial local level government of 1995 and governed by the provincial governments, then came under the custodian of the provincial health authorities through a binding partnership agreement between the health minister and the provincial governor of all our respective provinces. Mr. Speaker, the first amendment to the Principal Act was amended in 2013 to allow the PHA boards to address the appointments of CEO so that the cumbersome process of appointment can be avoided. Mr. Speaker, it was then followed by the development of two PHA regulations that came into operation in 2020 to support the operation of the provincial health authorities, especially in the appointment of PHA CEOs, the investigation and discipline of CEOs, and sets the key performance indicators for the CEO and the senior contract officers under which they are assessed. Some challenges remain, Mr. Speaker, and through the PHA Act, some challenges remain, Mr. Speaker. Although the PHA Act 2007 brought together a once fragmented health service system and gave independency to the PHA to effectively manage the operations of PHA, the current health challenges of PHA are critical and impedes on safe and quality health services delivery that the people of this country are entitled to. Mr. Speaker, these challenges include accountability on the CEO's conduct, organizational structure, reporting and coordination, monitoring and performance, and implementation of the National Health Plan and the National Health Services Standards. Mr. Speaker, prudent governance of the health system allows for an effective and efficient health service delivery. Therefore, the Health Department, through our government support, has the urgency to address these challenges. Mr. Speaker, the government is approaching these PHA challenges in a two-phase approach or amendment. The first of the amendments is brought in to urgently address the current imposing challenges. Mr. Speaker, the government sees the need to critically address
urgent challenges by way of amending the PHA Act to improve the overall governance, management and the leadership of PHA in delivering health services in Papua New Guinea, and also to establish a better reporting system and coordination between the Health Department, provincial government and the Provincial Health Authority. Here, the second phase of the amendment is a much broader review of the laws affecting the health governance and the service delivery and policy recommendations to inform law reform that has already commenced. Mr. Speaker, the laws under subject of reviews are the Provincial Health Authorities Act, the National Health Administration Act of 1997 and the Public Hospital Act of 1994. Mr. Speaker, NEC submission of the broader review is being processed before NEC so that proper consultations can be progressed. Mr. Speaker, this provides a great opportunity to the provincial government and those affected by the health system governance, arrangement and the health service delivery to express your views and for us to collectively find a solution. What is in this present amendment, Mr. Speaker? I bring your attention to the following 14 amendments encapsulated under the Provincial Health Authorities Amendment Bill 2023. Mr. Speaker, you may refer to your explanatory notes as I summarize the content of this PHA Amendment Bill 2023. Amendment number 1, functions of the Provincial Health Authorities. Mr. Speaker, Section 12 and Subsection 3 of the Principal Act is amended to ensure consistency with Section 7, which refers to partnership agreement between PHA and the provinces. Amendment number 2, compliance by the Provincial Health Authorities. Mr. Speaker, the Principal Act is amended and new subsection 12A is added. This is to make the National Health Plan and the National Health Service Standard as a mandatory function requirement of all PHA so that there is consistency in establishment of health service facilities, management of equipment, provisions of staff, procedures for planning, budgeting and reporting, management of information, collection and approval of requests for the establishment of health facilities, and partnership. This section applies to the partners and members and any other person who provides support to the PHA provinces. Amendment number 3, powers to establish committee. Mr. Speaker, the Principal Act is amended and a new section 13A is added. The proposed amendment provides for the establishment of various subcommittees to assist with the functions of PHA, including human resource, finance and budgeting, partnership, audit, policy and planning, public health services, and curative health services, and also to maintain and enhance good governance and accountability. Amendment number 4, the constitution of the board. Mr. Speaker, Section 17 of the Principal Act is proposed or amended. This amendment enhances the partnership with the Health Department and the provincial government. Gives effect to the balance of power shared between PHA and the provincial governor under the partnership agreement. The Provincial Health Administration or his representative will be a voting member of the PHA board to further strengthen and encourage ownership of health services delivery in that province or the provinces, and encourage and appoints major Christian health services in the province to have the representations in the board. Amendment number 5, merit requirements of non-ex-officio board members. Mr. Speaker, the Principal Act is amended by adding a new section 17A. This section allows for the nomination of ex-officio members who are fit and proper person to hold office. Merits include not being convicted of a serious criminal offense, not have a criminal case pending before the National Court, not have a leadership case before the Ombudsman or leadership tribunal, not be an officer or an employee of the public service or a statutory authority or agency, not be an office holder or a candidate of an election as an office holder in a racial political party, not to be disbarred by virtue of any constitutional or statutory restrictions under the leadership code, and be medically fit. Amendment number 6, the annual report. Mr. Speaker, Section 28 of the Principal Act is amended. Apart from reporting to the Minister for Health and the Provincial Governor, the PHA Board will also submit report to the National Health Board. The National Health Board is responsible for operations of all health legislations, including PHA Act. Amendment number 7, the functions of the Chief Executive Officer. Mr. Speaker, Section 30 of the Principal Act is amended to include other functions. Ensure policies predetermined by the Board of the Provincial Health Authorities are implemented. Ensures obligation of the PHA Act set out under relevant laws are complied and with, and ensure implementation of the National and Provincial Health Plan, the National Health Services Standards. Amendment number 8, quarterly report by the CEO. Mr. Speaker, the Principal Act is amended by adding new section 30A. This section bridges the gap between the Health Secretary and the CEO by ensuring that the CEO provides quarterly reports to the Health Secretary on the operation and funding of health services. Bridges missing link between PHA and the Health Department relating to the administration and operations of PHA and accountability of the PHA CEOs. Mr. Speaker, when we were operating, if I could, when we were operating under the COVID-19 pandemic, we established there's a much disjoint between PHA CEOs and Secretary of Health, and PHAs and provincial administrators also. So these amendments are trying to bridge those divides. Mr. Speaker, Section 33 of the Principal Act is amended. The law requires all PHAs to have an organizational structure that effectively implements the National Health Plan and the National Health Services. The PHAs to have a uniform PHA organizational structure, sets out the merit requirement for selection of PHA senior officers at the director level before appointments are made. Amendment number 9, complaint and investigation. The Principal Act Part 3 and Section 35 is amended by adding a new section, Part 3A and Section 35A. This is to support accountability and transparency of health service delivery, makes the PHA CEO accountable to the public community, imposes the board to receive complaints from the public and aggrieved staff, and also Health Department in the management of PHA, allows the Minister to direct the Department of Health or the National Health Board to act on his behalf in dealing with the PHA CEO if the board is absent or fails to address the conduct of CEO and the services of the PHA. Amendment number 9. Amendment number 11. Process of complaint and investigation. Mr. Speaker, the Principal Act Part 3 and Section 35 is amended by adding a new Part 3A and 3B and 35B, sets a clear path way for complaints and investigations relating to CEO and board and general health service deliveries in the provinces. Amendment number 12 is a repeal of section. Mr. Speaker, the amendment repeals section 59, 60, 61, 62, and 63. This section repeals the National Health Administration Act, which are error in law, therefore have been deleted in the PHA Act. However, they are incorporated into the National Health Administration Act, and necessary changes have been made. Amendment number 12, or 13, sorry. Amendment number 13. I apologize for the typo here. Model policy functions of provincial health authorities. Mr. Speaker, Schedule 6 of the Principal Act is amended to make implementation of the National Health Services Standard mandatory. Amendment of Schedule 6 reflects the importance of PHA's core business in clinical governance and audits relating to patient care mandated in the National Health Services Standard. And Amendment 14 in the regulations. Mr. Speaker, these amendments allow development of further regulations under the PHA Act, development of terms of reference of the PHA Board, and regulations of the National Health Standards Services, and any other matters required to extend from what is provided in the PHA Act 2007. Mr. Speaker, consultations were carried out in 2019, resulting in the recommendations to amend PHA Act 2007 to improve PHA reporting and governance structure, establish connectivity with the National Health Board and the PHA boards, and to enhance accountability and prudence governance and other related matters. Mr. Speaker, the proposed amendments has been given legal clearance by the state solicitor and the necessary certificate of compliances as issued by the First Legislative Council. Mr. Speaker, how does this act support the government's vision? The board and CEO and members of PHA are qualified and competent to enhance PNG health workforce. Mr. Speaker, the board and managers of PHAs upholds prudent governance and process in carrying out the responsibilities in order to avoid fraud and corruption. Mr. Speaker, good working relations with the health department, the PHAs and the provincial governments and other health partners. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, the people of Papua New Guinea, regardless of the gender, age, or geographical location, cultural background, or their beliefs and value systems, will have access to safe, quality, and effective health care, which contributes to a healthy, wealthy, happy society for the people of Papua New Guinea as envisaged in the Government of PNG Vision 2050. I do commend this bill to the House.
Honourable Member belong Pomio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I take note of the amendments made by the Prime Minister, and I'd like to debate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Prime Minister for presenting these important amendments to the Provincial Health Authorities Act of 2007 on behalf of the Minister for Health. I'd like to make just few comments. Firstly, on Section 28 of the Act, my committee, under the Health Parliamentary Committee on Health Matters, during our recent visits to NGD PHA and PHA in East Sepik, PHA in Eastern Highlands Province, we noted that the annual reports they were only given to the Minister for Health. Despite the fact that the Act clearly says that the report, once completed, or annual reports once completed, they must be also given to the Governor of the province. Emino toko sem report by given also the Minister for Health and the Governor of the province. There's la plenty of PHS lo country bloyimi only no benin this la. They are only given the report to the Minister for Health and neglecting that particular responsibility. Lo give him report to the Governor of the province too. Enough now. So Mila make it clear today. Today the Act is also including also we must go give him too long National Health Board. But lo tok long report you must give him long Governor of the province and start since 2007. Enough now we like strong is lo tok and also Governor of the province. Now there is also a system in the province where members of parliament sit on the provincial assembly, which it is also responsibility of the chairman of health law province. Location this like an report to the provincial assembly. Tok lo up. Now that's why members of parliament, or like open members, will also know that only got responsibility lo playing lo putting money na support him health lo one district blamibla. At the moment the reports are only given straight or direct to the Minister for Health. Na ino got report to give me go long la Governor of the province na mipla lo members of parliament where you sit down long assembly blow me. Even no survey one him something or one him requirement blow me how lo support him health long one province or district blow me. So the first something is yes issue na today email stressing and also Mr. Act of Parliament 2007 all the PHAs or annual reports, even including the strategic plan for each PHAs, whatever the plans are, development plans or strategic result strategic plans for the PHAs must be given to the Minister for Health, but also it's a responsibility for PHAs to also given to the respective governor of the provinces. First something. Second, Dr. Mela Mekim Loen, the section 56 law PHA Act of 2007 requiring what's in the regulation. Committee Blomi, law sad law health parliamentary committee. Tapi bila look round, bila look mo say got big confusion. Namelo reporting between the governor of the province and the PHA board. Na ikam long Minister of Health, na Secretary of Health. That can only be improved once we establish a proper regulation. Regulation where since 2007 time this hectic stop. You know got regulation 16 years now na regulation na come up yet. Tapi bin Minister of Public Service, mi look yung big difference. There were regulations for the Public Service Management Act. Now, this like making clear, showing clear how you appoint them all PA na departmental heads, na CEO, law districts, na kind of them. But time ago, minister below head last time I did not see a regulation that's guiding how the appointment of the CEOs are done, how we measure the performance of the CEOs in the PHAs are done. So Mila making slot talk today also regulation according to section 56. It's an outstanding matter. Now we feature to the report along a parliamentary committee. Now it's we want to make sure that the Department of Health take note of this. We have given them special instruction that this regulation that's outstanding for the past 16 years must be given to the committee and the parliament as soon as possible, preferably before the end of this year, and by giving me a clear talk how we implement in PHA Act. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that without the regulation in Section 56, PHA Act cannot be fully understood and cannot be fully implemented. Mr. Speaker, last talk Lomi, I was looking for how on the section by including long here long how you got contract na performance management system long all CEOs. I to talk long all appointment, but even missing long how we regulating monitoring performance of CEOs long all PHAs. Clear law contract specifications and stop now how we monitoring performance of all CEOs, law PHAs, making clear law this act. But we believe also once the regulation under Section 56 of the Act is done, we can see a clearer definition on how we can monitor the performance of the boards and the CEOs of the respective PHAs. And I support these important amendments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Governor along Southern Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Me too commend him government supporting this bill. I think this is in the right directions. Past time through, me get big difficulties on structural and legislative inconsistency. Why me talk all same? Because previously before PHA, like in Sidelong, Southern Highlands, for the information of Parliament, we got 177 community aid posts. Now 38 health centers. Now 5 hospital. That's the health sector priority where PHA take over. Past time and provincial government and Miblosa manage him. So whatever happens long now, time PHA come inside, PHA take ownership, board staff, all toggle them only responsible long report to Secretary and Department of Health. But time one floor health center, one floor this floor 8 posts. Now hospital, something go bugger up and service in the staff, heavy come up. All not talk health secretary, PHA CEO, all the governor, provincial government way. But structurally, legislatively, PHA was inconsistent to effective service delivery. Right now, through long display amendments, and by making partnership one time PHA and provincial government. Maybe sub-national government stop lo place, maybe look at him. All health center blow me pla, all hospital blow me pla. But this inconsistency, I mean, confusion plenty service delivery long provincial government one time, health sector, heavy come up, all the provincial government way, governor way. But reporting system, mechanism, stop, underneath lo PHA stop one time governor or provincial government, and go straight to secretary of health and health department. So we are correcting that inconsistency in law. These are some, not only in the health, but plenty all not sector to this kind inconsistency. I'm saying Bagaravim service delivery, na governance. So me like commending government on this good law, all amendments have come now so that there will be accountability and reporting mechanism from PHA, not only to health department, but long authority staff of province. And because people look at all health centers now, 8 posts now, all this hospital stuff one time now, partnership member come up. So me commend him government for this amendments by making work from provincial government one time. Very important health sector service delivery partnership can come up good inside law one province and district displacant. So thank you straight.
Honorable Governor belong all the planning governor is up because the syllabilla me pass long also bamilarem governor belong morba you pass them behind me look sablo larble governor.
Speaker, number one true me like talk hamamas lo you yet. Long you stop right now you can begin sit down or see me from Makimi long but sit down sharing meeting. Also na mi hamamas lo lukimi on this day. Thank you, Mr. Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
Tok lomi by nuna plan di mila tok thank you long Prime Minister. Long good bill come long Parliament. Long by helping Yumi, long province, one time national government, particularly Department of Health. Long by me by walk boom one time. Past time you know stop. You got long province, you got committee authority belong yet, one province. Na health department stop belong yet. So now this act by helping long by making possible long by me can boom one time long this authority now set this amendment is set him up long by me boom one time so that by governor or representative or governor by staff long this authority or provincial government represented by staff inside long this authority now all lotto line Mr. Speaker all lotto line 2 representative long by staff. Why me talk this floor? Because long morobe Lutheran church and a big blood church and one kind of same government belong morobe long one long where all people is staff long end big blood government and a Lutheran church. Now plenty our sick 8 posts all sub health center one them two our sick belong morobe our sick you know sub health center our sick long etep our sick General Hospital, one time Butawang General Hospital, one time one time Sampla Health Extension, long province, Lutheran Church Bosim. Also me can look how this amendment 4, long making sure also says represented by staff inside the board. Now me got big plan mass. Not just the Lutheran Church, but Catholic too, all its staff. Some lot of churches too, all its staff. So the government yet by decide to make sure one church representative by staff inside. But the point is church representative must be staff. Because all alpimimil carry him out, walk long our sick, now walk long give marasin all people, now walk long campaign, long making sure or some even when him sick. This plan me people work the health departments I make him, church make him, government make him. So this I mean come up, I mean bung me come one time sample line, also amendment number 4 we talk long him, bring him all come inside. The provincial health section believe me, one time national health section believe me, representative believe me by staff of this board. Now me got big thank you on this amendment. Time before me governor, Mr. Deputy Speaker, time me governor time, long 97, you going up long 2012, and me plus I got big fights I kira. Now me long provincial health, long I need leadership long me play got departmental head long health how it stop. Now health department you got Angao Hospital, one time representative, one time all doctors you walk. Is how it start. Now, me plus how so I got big fight kid up, all asking me long give him all budget, that's me play no clear. When I must through all ask him long him. Now how comes the national department you give him money now you become asking the provincial government. Me play so I argue go come with them. Now whilst we arguing like that, people suffer. Mr. Acting Speaker, Morobe MU at use happiness. Electorate blue and one of the toughest electorate too. Kunai am isi long kari go kanta so one to up ego long imani na all place go same long tapakainantu this la have very mountainous places lo carbon to one kind mountainous places long nawai mountainous places na a lot of la and even the Siasi Island Mr. Acting Speaker Siasi Island and island me long way too much long big playground lo morbe me long way too much so time heavy come up la held on this plahab me plahap logo. Now resource from the provincial government become limited. Me by ask him national health department to help him, but because no connection blame no stop, walk boom blame no stop, kind of authority no stop. So how one ask him come? You may ask him, but then put down on namel na help him by no come. So Mr. Acting Speaker, me how much too long? This board, this amendment now come. long put in provincial government, want the national government come together. Now we play work. So where by provincial government, plan belong all this belong housing kirap or health center kirap or head post kirap or one can marathon by giving long all people. This play goes short long one half. Then we play got national health department and staff. And we connect one them national government. Where money ministry staff long and MEC long connect me go and talk to one time international community, World Health Organization. So we walk through long people department of health. So walk on Yumi, all by walk advice him Yumi long. When him up me play go short, all can advise him you all Yumi or Sam all by come inside. When him help him me play go short, this short play me play big play government health department by come inside. So we play can walk on one time. And hopefully, maybe Mr. Prime Minister, I don't see it here, I'm going to look at it. Also, you must put in some representative long World Health Organization to go inside. You go inside long all boards. People must mark him all. Because the world is small now. You know, big blows him before. You know, start blowing and blowing those him before. You may depend on each other. World may depend on each other. And that is why we need to have international people represented in the boat long this long boat long combined boat long helping me now Billy trying long come up him. So Prime Minister me got big plan mas province below me you know below me ogata that's me at me bosom staff Morobe province. Me big through toughest through me say hard me plus a Sodwin all members are Sodwin too all member 10 members also Sodwin. Lay member ta so me close to sorry country I Muslim you legally electorate. That's so long all electorate so make him all members I sort win here. Nowadays also me plus sort win or call me plus con man over there. Con member I'll call him a center so me to all the image I get con or send a name you mean con over the con. But some con man I deliver him something in a place. So members start all by delivering so the open members are having hard time. Mila talk want him display bill and by helping me. Now Mila him thank him Prime Minister you by starting talking about Health Secretary, Health Minister. Now Sampla District now is signing agreement. Even before the display committee now board now by establish him all signing agreement. Also member belong Human Gulf is signing agreement. Want the Health Department. Member belong Wawbulolo is signing agreement. Long Health Department belong boom one time. This is a good plus sign. Me support him as a governor. Me support him all. Me play work one time. No side below health. Prime Minister, me I must through long introduction long diesel bill by me pass him. Na all more by talk thank you to you. Only stop here, but me stop all stop here. Na me talk people thank you to you on behalf of the Morbe people. That is such a bill is a very important bill. And may God bless you. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Waware.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker, Lord Luxor, Lord People, Lord Waware. Health and one big play issue inside long district Blomi, I think all got rural districts. Now, me commenting Minister Blong. Health one time Prime Minister will bring him this amendment come law floor. Thank you through me support him. But concern blooming me and Mosem PHA one time provincial government or BC long health provincial health hospitals. Now Mipla district where do we fit into that? Mipla staff law ground. We are at the ground level but we not look at one place. Area where district will fit into. All the issues long health. Meeting also call him all governor or CEO long PHA. Also calling people all provincial members. District members. So this all PHA thing. There must be some way that it must work with the DDA. It must work with the DDA. So please, Minister Blong Health, Minister Blong Health, please you lulu gen long this law blo PHA. Na fitting mipla district members or district members into that act also. So we can also assist in the delivery of health services to our people. And first point for me. Second point, where health services no exist, we have village health volunteers. Now, they perform the role of also, me plus call them doctor place. They perform the role where health services, government health workers are not all present long. So how do we capture them in the PHA? That's my concern. How do we capture them in the PHA? So this is also another matter for the health minister to look into it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's my debate.
The Honourable Governor for ECP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you very much. Me, number one talk, me talk. Thank you, long amendments come. Me play that there's been a lot of debate amongst ourselves as to how to improve the delivery of health long province, Blomipla, respectively. And I wanted to commend the bill because I note from the many discussions over the last 6 years the difficulties that some people have had. I've been fortunate that I came through as a chairman of a hospital, and then when I became governor and under the leadership of the then minister, the Honorable Sepu Katemu, in 2019 we constituted the ECP Provincial Health Authority because I saw the difficulty between the provincial system where all rural health services been established in the provincial government. The health authority in the province only looked after the main hospital. There was no connection between the main hospital and the outlying facilities in the district. So I wanted to share this so there's some institutional memory now. You all members of Flow can understand him why. So Mipla ECP, we were one of the last provinces, one of the recent ones to join, only in 2019. The first thing that happened when the PHA was constituted, either within health department or within treasury, the budget that originally went to the province to look after the rural health facilities only cut it. So there was a disconnect there. So we suffered for about 2 years until we re-established that whatever funding was there originally underneath long-haul minimum priority funding or grants here, they were supposed to go to the PHA. But when the PHA got constituted, those grants got cut. So again, there's a disconnect. Treasury, Health Department, PHA. So just to give you all some ideas to plan it time, you may blame him entity nothing, now you may not understand him why. One of the things you will all find is that in order to have operational efficiency, there are only a few doctors and medical people who are parliamentarians. Not all of us understand the standards required to construct various levels and maintain various levels of health facilities. It's a specialized area. You may all remember me looking mosem, you may excited through long. Build him all classroom na, build him can something na. We forget that health is a very technical area that requires very specific expertise. But just to give you an example of ECP, time people constitute him PHA, we realized that we didn't have enough community health workers, and we realized that we didn't have enough nurses. So we set about trying to establish a nursing college. Through a bit of a foul-up in government, ECP ended up with 2 nursing colleges at about the same time, which is good for the country because many of you, your people are learning in one of these institutions and the other one is developing health workers for the province. As we went on, there was an opportunity to build district hospitals. And I want to thank the former Prime Minister, the Honourable Peter O'Neill and member for Yalibu Pangia. He came to ECP and, as is the current practice now, check and go straight to Loben member. And without criticizing anyone, the PHA stepped in and got all the open members together and said, look, we can help you build your province, district hospital. Only one district in ECP, the member stood up and handed the check over to the PHA. And as a result, the Ambunti District Hospital was built within 2 years, record time, and that was done by the PHA working with the open members. So I wanted to share this with all of you in this house. You can correct this law arrangements time only come up. If you step aside and allow the professionals to work, they can get things done. Now yet, Mibla long ECP, because of the work of the PHA, using PSIP funds, Mibla by Kisimambla Polyclinic, only now building Lo Wirwi as part of this entire system. And that polyclinic will serve Wewak district particularly, but Wewak town also. I'm happy to say that if you have a good board, I want to advise me like give him, especially lo you brother and sister governor blow me. No can through appoint him all one talk blow you, all campaign committee blow you, or this like an online go inside long. PHA board, because that is the best recipe for failure. You want the thing to fail, you mark him all boy blow you, you have to go inside. It will fail, I guarantee you. Appoint him all credible line inside the community, even people who have no connection with you, professional people who are successful, put him only go inside now. Let them manage this thing because they also have an interest in good health services. Because Lomibla make it more sense. ECP got Nupla provincial housing too. Again, delivered by this organization. Lately, and because we have a very good CEO, the CEO is not a CIPIC. The CEO was selected through a transparent process that was hired out to one of these recruiting companies. And only had fight him Desalamanna, give him Lomibla. And you know, there was a fight for the position. Now, me to me same because Mibla civic fight lo desla position. But as a result of employing professional management within the organization, we reports quarterly as required by the Act. I don't have to go and chase the CEO. The reports come. The CEO is working very well with the provincial administrator. They don't have an issue. They're not fighting. They're helping each other. And then just recently, the PHA has gone out, and here's the thing. They have now secured donor funding to fix all of the other health facilities across the 6 districts in my province. I had nothing to do with it. The PHA went ahead because they saw the need. They went and reached out to the donors. They did the justification. Now, all by kissing money, lo continue, lo expend him so. The open member doesn't have to spend his DSIP. The governor can use the PSIP on some other important things that are needed in the province. But I wanted to share this with all of you, my fellow leaders, to demonstrate to you that if you leave your hands off an organization with a good design, like what the Prime Minister is now bringing on behalf of the Health Minister, it will work and it will serve its purpose and it will help our people. Because if you're looking for a PHA that is finding its feet and is actually going out and doing things without interference from the governor, without interference from the open members, then you come and look him how the one in ECPIC is working. They are doing an excellent job. They are following the Act. They are accountable. They are responsible. And where they see the need, only they go out and find him money na Simikam. Only oklo expand him health facility. Na health services below ECPIC. We started off in 2013 with 9 doctors in ECPIC. 9. Today we have 36 doctors. Some of them are now being deployed out into the districts for the first time in our history. And we have 6 more doctors to employ, and these doctors are going to come from overseas. That is what this PHA has been able to achieve from 2020 up until now. Triple yartaso. Even though the Act has been in existence for 16 years, Mibla lo ECP got PHA lo 3 years taso. We've given them the opportunity to do the things that were designed in the law for them to do. And I want to say to you that it is a success story. It has a long way to go, but just from the information now me sharing one time, you can look him also. If you put professional Papua New Guineans who are not your one-talk, not your relative, not your churchmate, not your uncle, into these positions of responsibility, they will serve our people and they will do it well. With that, Mr. Acting Speaker, Deputy Speaker, sorry, I want to commend the bill and to thank the Health Minister in his absence and to thank the Prime Minister for bringing it to the floor.
The question is that the question be put. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The question is that the bill now be read the second time. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Clerk.
Second reading, a bill for an act to amend the Provincial Health Authorities Act 2007 to provide for accountability and compliance by the provincial health authorities and for related purposes.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I do now ask the Leave of Parliament to move the third reading forthwith.
Is the leave granted? The Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill now be read a third time, please.
The question is that the question be put. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The question is that the bill now be read the third time. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Clerk.
Third reading, a bill for an act to amend the Provincial Health Authorities Act 2007 to provide for accountability and compliance by the provincial health authorities and for related purposes.
Prime Minister. Oh, Clerk, sorry. Prime Minister, Clerk.
Notice number 55, Prime Minister.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again on behalf of the hard-working Minister for Health, the Honorable Dr. Lina Tom, as well as the Health Minister preceding him, Honorable Minister Wong, I will present the National Health Administration Amendment Bill 2023.
Is the leave granted? Beg your pardon, Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the National Health Administration Act 1997 and for related purposes.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I ask Leave of Parliament to move the third reading for this second reading, brother.
Is the leave granted? Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill now be read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Speaker, it is again my pleasure to introduce to this Honourable House the National Health Administration Amendment Bill 2023 on behalf of our Health Minister. Mr. Speaker, the National Health Administration Act 1997 was an act that was passed in 1997 when the health systems were still under the mandate of the provincial government, under the organic law on provincial and local level government. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of the National Health Authority Act 1997 was to set forth provisions of the development of a national policy relating to health matters and the imposition of the national standards for the purpose of implementation of the national policy, the administrative functions of the provincial and local level governments in relation to health matters for the purposes of Section 43 and 45 of the Organic Law, administrative arrangements, functions and responsibilities in relation to health matters between the National Health Department and the offices of the provincial administrator and the district administrator for the purposes of Section 80, subsection 3 of the Organic Law on the provincial and local level governments. Mr. Speaker, since then there have been significant changes to the administration of health in Papua New Guinea. The health system came under the mandate of the Provincial Health Authorities as per the Provincial Health Authorities Act of 2007 through an agreement between the Health Minister and the Provincial Governor. This reform was not anticipated by the National Health Authority Act of 1997. Mr. Speaker, the governance of the health system has come under the spotlight with the COVID-19 pandemic. The independence of the National Health Board under the National Health Authority Act 1997 and its linkages to the Provincial Health Authorities Board and the alignment of current PHA reform to the National Health Authority Act are significant challenges faced by the health department and the provincial health authorities. Mr. Speaker, these challenges poses a threat to a healthcare system and its operations. Therefore, require urgent alignment of the health system's laws and health services delivery, whilst the broader issues are considered under the new review of the health system laws that we are currently engaged upon. Mr. Speaker, the review of the health system laws the review will take into consideration the National Health Administration Act 1997, the Provincial Health Authorities Act 2007, and the Public Hospital Act 1995 and the related laws to address the inconsistencies in the health system laws and to establish a well-defined legislative framework that will support the implementation of the National Health Plan 2020 to 2030. Mr. Speaker, the recommended amendments to the Act reflect the immediate need for change and to ensure greater support to the statutory role and functions of the Health Secretary, the Department of Health, the National Health Board, and the Provincial Health Authority Boards, and the alignment of health systems and health services delivery. Mr. Speaker, there are 12 amendments made under the National Health Administrative Act 97, which I summarized in this second reading. Mr. Speaker, for further detail of the amendments, I request this Honourable House to refer to the explanatory notes attached to the draft National Health Administration Amendment Bill 2023 for reference. Mr. Speaker, Section 2 of the National Health Administration Act is amended to define the healthcare system in Papua New Guinea. The amendment also recognizes the PHA reform by including provincial health authorities and provincial hospitals. Amendment 2, the membership of the National Health Board. Mr. Speaker, Section 9, Subsection 1 of the National Health Administration Act is amended to consider the independence of the National Health Board by the creation of a position of independent chairman, replacing the Secretary for Health as the chairman, whilst the Secretary for Health becomes an ordinary voting board member in an ex-officio capacity. Mr. Speaker, the amendment considers the split of Christian health services and the Catholic health services and recognizes significant contributions of healthcare services across Papua New Guinea by these church organizations. Therefore, establish church representatives from the members of the Catholic health services as well as the Christian health services. Mr. Speaker, you may ask me why, but I think Catholic has a bigger, greater footprint of health services, and I think the split comes from the context. Mr. Speaker, the amendment considers the importance of including a member of the PHA to a member of the National Health Board, therefore adds a member of one of the provincial health authorities to represent all in the National Health Board. Mr. Speaker, the amendment considers the importance of including a member of the civil society to represent community, therefore a member of a community is added to the National Health Board to represent the civil society. Mr. Speaker, the amendment adds a new section as referred to as 1A. The amendment considers proper due diligence in the appointment of board members, therefore establishes sets of minimum requirements that all non-ex-officio board members must meet. Amendment 3 calls members of the National Health Board. Mr. Speaker, the National Health Administration Act 1997 amendment to add a new section referred to as 9A. The amendment considers expert advice provided to make informed decisions, therefore provide the power to co-opt members with specialist skills to support the National Health Board, especially during board meetings. Amendment 4, functions and powers of the National Health Board. Mr. Speaker, Section 10 of the National Health Administration Act 97 is amended to include an extra function of the National Health Board, which is to monitor and evaluate the healthcare system, Mr. Speaker, Amendment 5, functions of provincial and district administrators. Mr. Speaker, Section 23 of this Act is amended to add a new section referred to as Section 9F that makes the district and provincial administrators ex-officio of any provincial health authorities in their provinces and not the health board as in the National Health Authority Act of 1997. This is just correcting a mismatch in the two laws, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 6, in terms of grant conditions, Section 27 of the Act is amended by including Provincial Health Authority. The amendment allows the Minister to enter into agreement with PHA in respect of grants made by national government, local level government, or any person for operation of health facilities or health service programs, or to provide a grant for the operation of health facilities or health service programs. Mr. Speaker, Section 35 of the National Health Administration Act is amended to create a position of independent chairperson for a term of 3 years who will replace the Secretary of Health as chairman. The chairman will now be appointed by NSC. The deputy chairman will also be a non-ex officer and nominated by members of the board. Mr. Speaker, this is to allow the health secretary as head of the department to also be responsive to the board that is chaired by someone else and not the health secretary himself becoming chair of the National Health Board. Mr. Speaker, Amendment 8 is to Section 42 of this Act, referred as the Principal Act. The amendment considers the importance of support required for board to effectively perform the functions and powers under the Act, therefore establish a defined subcommittee structure in law, including subcommittees on finance, donor coordination, PHAs, and partnerships are established. Amendment number 9, Minister may direct an investigation. Mr. Speaker, finally, this Act is amended to add a new section referred to as 33A. The amendment considers the importance of investigations and accountability, therefore create a power for the Health Minister to order an investigation or to create special investigations, to team to carry investigations across the portfolios for which the Health Minister is responsible, including the operation of provincial health authorities or public hospital, or any other issue of public health or national importance affecting the health sector, including matters like the pandemic and any health matters that emerges. Legitimacy of the National Health Administration Amendment Bill 23, Mr. Speaker, this amendment has not been done in isolation. Consultations were carried out in 2019, resulting in recommendations to amend the National Health Administration Act 1997 to improve independency and competency of the National Health Board, and also to have a tighter investigation and compliance mechanism set up for the purposes of accountability and transparency in the health system delivery in Papua New Guinea. National Health Board, through the amendment services, has the overarching board in which the PHA boards are accountable to. Mr. Speaker, the proposed amendments have been given legal clearance by the State Solicitor, and certificate of necessity has been issued. The National Executive Council has endorsed the proposed amendment, which FLC has issued certificate of compliance. Decentralization. On issues of decentralization, Mr. Speaker, the proposed amendment strengthens the decentralization of health services in PNG by ensuring linkage between the Health Department, National Health Department and the Provincial Health Authorities and the boards. The amendment also ensures that the Provincial Health Authority will effective partnership, prudent governance and compliance between CEO and boards in delivery of consistent and quality health services through the National Health Plan and the National Health Service standards are maintained. Mr. Speaker, these proposed amendments set a clear direction for the Minister to ensure accountability at all levels of health service delivery, to establish committees working in collaboration with different government and non-government organizations representing the National Health Board. This amendment is also likely to be well received by the health sector, including boards and CEOs of provincial health authorities, and is not considered controversial to the broader community. Mr. Speaker, a broader review on the National Health Administration Act 1997, the Provincial Health Authorities Act 2007, and the Public Hospitals Act 1995, and the related laws to address inconsistency in the health system is going on. These current proposed amendments form the initial steps by the Health Ministry as directed by government to reform the legislative framework for health to enhance governance and related matters in the health sector. Mr. Speaker, a well-defined legislative framework will support the implementation of the National Health Plan 2020 to 2030 at the government's Vision 2050 for all to be healthy, wealthy, wise, regardless of our age, gender, location of our geographical location, cultural background, so that we all can have access to safe, quality, and effective health care. Mr. Speaker, amongst many work we are still doing, I commend this bill to the House. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Abao.
Mr. Speaker, just very short intervention. Once again, commend the hardworking Minister for Health through the Prime Minister, who has brought about this very, very important amendments to the National Health Administration Act to align it with the provincial health authorities. When I was in the chair as secretary, when the organic law on provincial governments and local level governments in 1995 came in, every departmental head was asked to align their departmental administrations to the organic law on provincial governments and local level governments. And I've always said in caucus, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the non-provision of enabling legislation to the organic law on provincial government and local level government by many sectors is one of the key impediments to the effective delivery of public goods and services in this country. And it would be good if the Attorney General could give the Parliament an update on how many sectors in this country responded to the organic law on provincial governments and local level governments in developing their sectoral laws so that the new system, national, provincial, district authority and the LLG is properly aligned. And that I see always, and I have always argued, many enabling laws are still wanting by some of the key sectors in this country. So we were challenged during that time, and so we came up with the National Health Administration Act in 1977, 2 years after the organic law on provincial government and local level government was passed in 1995. On hindsight, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would want, through you, to refer this matter of the relevance of the National Health Board to the chairman of the Parliamentary Health Committee. My personal view has been, I think the landscape has changed. It was relevant during that time in 1995 and 97, but I think the question of the relevance of the National Health Board I want to pose to this Honourable House, while the Minister responsible is now trying to align the National Health Administration Act to the National Provincial Health Authority Act, and the Public Hospital Act, I think, is still in operation. And so those need to be brought in properly in the alignment. Otherwise, like the rest of the public services, the health sector could be cut up in different sectors and therefore inefficiency. One glaring amendment that made me to raise this question of the relevance of the National Health Board are two, and that is the independence of the Health Board, which the Minister is prescribing through this amendment, that this board is going to be independent. What does that mean? And to provide for that a little action on the new amendment, section 33A, subsection 2, when the minister gives a direction to investigate. Now ministers give directions to the departmental heads, and departmental heads, they must comply. This provision in this amendment says, and if you can come with me to subsection 9 and 33A, subsection 33A and 33AB, it says that a direction by the minister must be published in the National Gazette. You ministers, Minister for Health, when you issue a direction because of public complaint, This law says you must put your direction be gazetted in the public gazette before it's effective. How many days does it take to gazette an instruction in the National Gazette? While the issue at hand has to be responded to immediately. You wait in Gazette. Man by daya. And so, just looking through the details, and first time I've gone through it, my question through you, Chair of the House, if the Parliamentary Committee on Health can pick this up and pose a question on the relevance of establishing an independent National Health Board. I, for one, I don't think that's the way to go for health. Minister must give instruction to the Health Secretary. Minister must give instruction to the CEO, the Chairman of the Provincial Health Authority. When things are not right, you don't have to wait for that instruction to be gazetted in the National Gazette and procrastinating the entire process of running a government system. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I thought I'd air those things because I think we are going backwards rather than forwards with this amendment. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Governor for NCD.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. By Dr. Planty, I think mainly contribute of some Sepuka member long about him Dr. Longen. Some of the points where me like raised him earlier on about the amendment long all the PHA board, PHA Act. But anyway, me a Bruce Prince. But I just want to make this point along with what Puka, with this experience and hence, different capacity and stuff long and I'm a advocate or Dr. Yumi. I think, you must look governance system. Now you may work long working, in the different sectors, government and especially managing all these different type of functions that you may work creating. May I give you an example now long when I'm central bank. You may now grab him when I'm a board, and the board you may, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you may mark him online where from different sectors, not necessarily online where their competency in the area of economics. So all by Gona, all by help him, governor of the bank, the management of the bank, to manage, for example, monetary policies. We want to maybe please people or involve everyone into a particular, decision-making process, which may be, Mr. Deputy Speaker, members of Parliament, I think noble ideas, but work good or no good. You must think about this. You come back along all PHA. You may create a mobile board, now it's stopped. But in the provinces, you may got provincial assembly and PEC PNIS. Then we create a board to have oversight over, that important service, health long provinces. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, me looking at some duplication here. And people along the city, our experience is like it's speak in terms of recent creation of the PHA. But people got problem from day one here. Because the board is created, Section 17 of the PHA Act, we have to consult so many people, we have to include so many people, we have to include this sector, this sector, this sector. Hey, it's a problem even just to appoint the board. And then the board, you mean Makimoli go, all get competency, loyalty. We just want to please everybody. So you must think about this, like, what works? Mila game narbla picture to lo yumi lo scalim to you look at our universities and you look at Divine Word University. Divine Word University is started by all line the Yumilo Catholic Church, and they follow the American system. And the American system is a presidential system. The vice chancellor, the buck stops with him. You know, got board where the vice chancellor, answers to the board, and the board makes decision, they come back now. No. There is another advisory body which he can give him opinion or give him advice. But the buck stops with the vice chancellor. Or they call him the president of the Divine Word University. We have appointed you, we have confidence in you, you make the decision. Get the university up and running. On the other hand, you make a University of Papua New Guinea. You may want to please everyone, so you may got big club board or council. Some of them are ex-politicians, and then you may make him kind line you go. There's a line only go, only got competency. On what basis you may make him all you go? Only got experience managing university or not? There is a advisory body like you can create him statutory body or advisory body inside the university to gauge public opinion locum. But to manage the University of Papua New Guinea, we give the responsibility to the vice chancellor. You are a competent person, you are professional, you are a professor, you run the show. Make the decision and get it up and running. Now you may compare him, all our institutions like University of Technology, University of Goroka, University of Papua New Guinea, with all this council or board concept, and you compare it with the Divine Word University. Which university is working now? So now you may come along, this National Health Services, we got another board. What is this board going to do? Why can't we trust the secretary and the minister? And then connecting come to the province. Why we have another board? My provinces, the PEC or Provincial Assembly can articulate, canvass, scrutinize, whatever budget, money you keep giving come to the province. Then we subject it to proper, budget allocation or what, CEO belong, PHA like him, and then you may give him money, run. We are creating so many institutions. You may complain long in his stuff. So me, like making this a point, Mr. Deputy Speaker, members of Parliament, you may thinking the kind of structures you may working. We might be trying to come up with some noble, great ideas that makes us feel good that we have been inclusive, but it becomes an impediment to the outcome that we want. And I share the comments by Sepuka with this experience. I think you must rouse in the board. Let's get rid of it. Secretary, Minister, UPLA work, PHA, CEO, Governor, you may work. One time UPLA open member, you may work. Let's get things going and service delivered to our people. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
The question is that the question be put. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The question is that the bill now be read the second time. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Clerk.
Second reading, a bill for an act amended National Health Administration Act 1997 and for related purposes.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, before I speak with Parliament to move the third reading, let me make some one or two commentary notes in response to a few issues raised here by our two leaders. Health sector is a very important sector, in fact the most important sector. We're dealing with lives of our people. There needs to be enough check and balance in the system instead of putting our hands on one person, one secretary, one minister. Sometimes the minister is not really qualified to be a health. He doesn't have all the necessary information to make critical call for the health sector. We've been operating under this sector for so long, and many times we are 1%, 2% of the job. We're picking up a health system that has been completely broken down. Inefficiency, corruption, one-track system, favoritism. And we're just trying to hopefully break the barrier down. You see one big change we're doing today, removing the health department secretary away from the board, away from being the chairman of the board. He becomes an ex-officer. We find someone appropriate, qualified to have a overarching look down into the department concerned, as well as every other subsidiaries that work within the health sector, including, more importantly, the link to PHAs. We're now asking for a PHA representative on behalf of 22 to be also present on the health board so that PHA issues could be elevated to the highest decision-making forum of the health sector. There'll be the provision inside that includes for co-opting of qualified people in the instance when there's a need, etc. The health board becomes a functional board that gives direction, and hopefully in the process distance away from direct line of sight in terms of personal influence. Personal influence is good, political leadership is good also. If you have a good minister and if you have a good secretary, all works well. If we do not have a good minister and a good secretary, then you need someone else to also check the work of what is being progressed for the health sector. In the experience that I've had, it's too important a sector for us to allow and leave it in the hands of only one person or one government. And that board brings that scrutiny of functionality of the health sector, brings the churches into that board, brings competent members of the scientific community also into the board. And it's not a paid sort of board that sits there, comes in, does the job, checks the health sector. And if we get efficiency running, that board, in my view, should assist the minister and assist the secretary and assist the PHAs and get to clear out some of the inherent complaints we've been having in the health sector for so long. When we worked under duress in the pandemic period, we saw the total inefficiency and disjoint link between health board, health department, and the PHAs. And some of these are made and to correct. And I want to also, a small thing but important pointer made by the Gazette Hall. Is this talk about gazetting the reason for suspension or investigation. The country or the province concerned, the PHA concerned, needs to know why the minister is using his power to call for an investigation. So I think it amplifies also transparency in the process, instead of leaving only one person to dictate to what is good for the country. But again, the parliamentary chairman of the health sector will be part of the entire review that is taking place in the 3 or 4 laws that administers how we work in the health sector. It's all geared towards making and giving you power where you are, but at the same time augmenting or amplifying accountability and for allowing the health sector to be looked at holistically. So, Mr. Speaker, Acting Speaker, I want to ask Labour Parliament to move the third reading forward.
Is the leave granted? Leave granted. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill now be read a third time.
The question is that the question be put. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The question is that the bill now be read the third time. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Clerk.
Third reading, a bill for an act to amend the National Health Administration Act 1997 and for related purposes.
Clerk.
Notice number 56, Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again on behalf of our good Minister, the Honourable Dr. Lino Tom, who worked very hard, I want to present the Infants and Young Children's Food Supply Control Bill 2023.
Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to A, promote and safeguard the health and nutrition of infants and young children, and B, reduce and prevent malnutrition in infants and young children, and C, develop to adopt standards for feeding products, and D, regulate the dealers of commercially available complementary food and feeding products, and E, repeal the Baby Feed Supplies Control Act 1977, Chapter 365.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill now be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, sorry. Mr. Speaker, I beg your pardon. I ask leave of the Parliament to move the second reading forward.
Is the leave granted? Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill now be read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Speaker, again on behalf of the hardworking Minister, Dr. Lina Tom, I am pleased to move the Infant and Young Children's Food Supply Control Bill 2023 to be read the second time. Mr. Speaker, the Infants and Young Children's Food Supply Control Bill 2023 is to promote and safeguard the nutrition of infant and young children and to reduce the malnutrition rates by developing and adopting better standards for feeding products and to regulate the dealers of commercially available complementary food and feeding products. Mr. Speaker, the Infants and Young Children's Food Supply Control Bill 2023 also repeals the Baby Feed Supplies Control Act of 1977, which is not par with the current developments to effectively address the malnutrition in infants and young children of Papua New Guinea. Mr. Speaker, this is because over time it is observed that there has been an increase in the supply of using feeding supplies without proper prescriptions, imposing harm to infants and young children, and also there is increase in the complementary feeds and infant formulas supplies on the market without being properly regulated in the former Act. Mr. Speaker, survey findings shows critical need for Papua New Guinea to have a new law to improve nutrition level for our infants and young children. Mr. Speaker, survey findings reveal that malnutrition has been directly and indirectly responsible for the 2.5 million deaths annually among children under the age of 5 years. That is a global statistics. Over 2/3 of these deaths are associated with inappropriate feeding practices that usually occurs in the first year of life. Mr. Speaker, survey findings also reveal that malnutrition is considered one of the most important underlying causes of poor health outcomes in Papua New Guinea, by which 49.5% of children under the age of 59 months were stunted, 14.1% were wasted, with 6.4% severely wasted, and 13.7% were overweight. Prevalence of stunting was highest in rural children at 51.3% compared to 36.5% in urban areas, while there were no differences in wasting prevalence by rural or urban locations. Mr. Speaker, the World Bank identifies the promotion of exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life to be one of the most cost-effective measures to address widespread malnutrition. Breastfeeding has many health and emotional benefits and provides an infant all the nutrition, water and antibodies that the infant needs. Timely introduction of complementary feeding from 6 months of age that is nutritious, adequate and safe, with continued breastfeeding for up to 2 years of age or beyond is key to child survival and development. Mr. Speaker, nutrition is a crucial, universally recognized component of a child's right to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health, as stated in the Convention of the Rights of the Child. Mr. Speaker, therefore all children have right to adequate nutrition and access to safe and nutritious food, and both are essential for fulfilling their right to the highest attainable standard of health. Mr. Speaker, this means no child should have to die or have a reduced quality of life in terms of survival and development because of uninformed feeding choices and practices of parents and the lack of proper regulatory environment on standards, marketing, and distribution of feeding products. Mr. Speaker, the National Health Department therefore has put in place through the Infant and Young Children's Feeding Products Control Bill of 2023 proper standards for breast milk substitutes and commercially available complementary feeding products, regulate access to and distribution of apparatuses, and regulate the marketing and distribution of such products, and to ensure that the feeding practices in PNG provide adequate nutrition and prevent malnutrition in infants and young children. Mr. Speaker, the new bill therefore will ensure safe and adequate nutrition for infants and young children in Papua New Guinea by protecting breastfeeding and by regulating the marketing of food products manufactured for infants and young children and of feeding bottles, teats, and dummies. It will also inform health workers and relevant stakeholders on improved infant and young child feeding practices based on international best practice. Mr. Speaker, what is in this Infant and Young Children's Food Supply Control Bill 2023? A full detail of what is captured in the Infant and Young Children's Feeding Product Bill itself is attached here with the explanatory notes. Mr. Speaker, in summary, this bill provides for the following. It provides a legal framework to enable proper regulation of access to feeding products and apparatus by parents, guardians, caretakers, based on medical prescription, licensing of distributors, requirement of labeling of feeding products, and promotion of feeding products and apparatus. Secondly, it established an advisory committee consisting of experts within and outside the government and government cycle to work closely with the Food and Sanitation Council responsible for food imports to Papua New Guinea and advise on the required standards for feeding products and apparatus. Third, it stipulates the standards required for breast milk substitutes and the apparatuses and how information obtained and published. Fourthly, it prohibits misleading information and labeling and promotion of feeding products. Fifth, issues license for manufacturers and distributors of baby feed products and apparatus. Sixth, establish inspectors are required to ensure there is compliance by the dealers of baby feed and products and apparatus. And lastly, ensures dealer comply with the provisions of the law and any directions of the Department of Health. Non-compliance is an offense and shall be penalized through fines and imprisonment. Mr. Speaker, this amendment has not been done in isolation. The review of the Act through consultations revealed the need for a policy on infant and young children feeding. It began in 2011. The Department of Health undertook several consultations which culminated in the development of the Infant and Young Children Feeding Policy of 2014. This was supported by various stakeholder consultations, NGO organized with government, NGOs, and international agencies. Mr. Speaker, the development of the above policy was also supported by findings of the National Health PNG National Nutrition Survey of 2005, the Demographic and Health Survey of 2006, the Pediatric Hospital Reporting System of 2011 and 21, and the PNG Anthropical Pediatric Survey of 1998. Mr. Speaker, this supports the decentralization work and will be enforced by our National Health Department and the provincial health authorities, districts. This also goes well for our agenda to improve nutrition status of our children and infants of Papua New Guinea to improve their quality of life. This bill gives effect to the national nutrition policy, therefore is likely to be well received by all. This bill also has the full support of government. Mr. Speaker, I bring you all to indicate that it strengthens our new National Health Plan 2020 to 2030. It also works within the ambit of National Nutrition Policy of 2016 to 2026 that captures our focus as a country, our government agenda to improve nutritional status of all our infants and children so that they could have an improved quality of life. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, proper standards for breast milk substitutes and commercially available complementary feeding products, access to and distribution of the apparatus, marketing and distribution of such products need to be regulated to ensure they are compliant with manufacturing standards and importation requirements as they impose threat on the vulnerability of population comprising of our infants and our young children that are highly dependent on you and me to make this law to protect their rights to good nutrition. Let us now begin by supporting our infant children food supply bill by voting for this proposed bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question is that the question be put. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The question is that the bill now be read the second time. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Clerk.
Second reading. A bill for an act to A, promote and safeguard health and nutrition of infants and young children, and B, reduce and prevent malnutrition in infants and young children, and C, develop to adapt standards for feeding products, and D, regulate the dealers of commercially available complementary food and feeding products, and E, repeal the Baby Feeds Supplies Control Act 1977, Chapter 365.
The Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of Parliament to move the third reading forthwith, please.
Is the leave granted? Mr. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, before I move that the bill be read for the third time, I just want to make a passing remark. Today, 9th, today, 10th, this day last year, all of you were here and from the opposition side and from the government side, and gave support to my election as Prime Minister. And so I just want to say thank you very much. I want to say thank you very much to the trust and mandate that you've all placed, not just on myself, but the Pangu leadership. And I want to also thank the people of this country for voting. 39 of us in Pangu Party, but more importantly, all of us collectively, and for the mandate that you've given us for us to be in government. I want to also now, Mr. Speaker, move that this bill be read a third time.
The question is that the question be put. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The question is that the bill now be read the third time. In accordance with constitutional requirement, the bill must be passed by an absolute majority of 60 members. Clerk, ring the bell. Attendants, close the door. The question is that the bill now be read a third time. Would those in favor please stand? Would those against please stand? Honourable members, those who vote in support of the bill, 82, and noes, 0. Clerk.
Third reading. A bill for an act to A, promote and safeguard the health and nutrition of infants and young children, and B, reduce and prevent malnutrition in infants and young children, and C, develop or adopt standards for feeding products, and D, regulate the dealers of commercially available complementary food and feeding products, and E, repeal the Baby Feeds Supplies Control Act 1977, Chapter 365.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much.
Acting Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Acting Speaker, asks leave of the Parliament to move a motion without notice, please.
Is the leave granted? Move your motion.
Acting Speaker, I move that this Parliament establish a select committee on the Ombudsman Commission. 1. 2. The members of this committee shall be Honorable Luther Wenge as the chairman, Honorable Alan Marat as the deputy chairman, Honorable Elias Kabobore Committee, Honorable Gabriel Capris, Honorable Kit Idugu, Honorable Se Peter Ipadas, Honorable Se Pukatemu, Honorable William Bando, and Honorable Alan Bird. The terms of reference of this committee shall be to report to the National Parliament in a single report or reports dealing with the following. To review the legislation governing the Ombudsman Commission, including its operation, and further to strengthen and make more effective and active so that they remain within their powers and functions provided by the Constitution and relevant organic laws. B, whether necessary, the committee may commence change on amendment to the relevant laws and bring those to the Parliament for the Parliament to consider during the terms of the committee. C, the committee shall seek and review on the general public and relevant organizations throughout the country to report the findings and the consideration of the Parliament, consideration to the Parliament. D, the committee may consider other pertinent matters to complement its tasks, and E, the committee shall have the powers to send a person or papers or record to act during the research. And D and F, the quorum of the committee shall be 5. Thank you, Speaker.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Acting Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. I move that the Parliament do now adjourn until tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the morning.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Honourable members, I now adjourn Parliament to tomorrow 10 o'clock a.m.